I knew something was wrong the second I walked into the lobby and felt the silence hit me like a draft. Usually, Monday mornings at CorePath buzzed with caffeine and chaos. Project managers faking importance with their clipboards, interns sprinting with Starbucks trays, analysts whispering about who was sleeping with whom. But that morning, the air was different. Thicker, watchful. And then I saw it. At the security desk, pinned under the cheap plastic cover where they normally kept parking notices, was my face. A full-color printout of my company ID photo. My smile looked forced, my hair flat from the day they'd taken it years ago. But it wasn't the photo that made me freeze. It was the words written in thick black marker across the bottom. Banned from this floor forever. I stopped breathing. The guard wouldn't look at me. He tapped his pen nervously against the desk, pretending to read a logbook. Behind me, the elevator dinged and swallowed a group of junior associates, all pretending they hadn't seen the notice. I swallowed, adjusted my bag on my shoulder, and forced my legs to move. No words, no confrontation, just silence. Because what was I supposed to say? That's me, the woman you've just branded like a criminal. I pushed through the glass doors and kept walking. My heels clicked against the tile, every step sounding louder than it should have. I felt eyes on me from every corner, but no one spoke. Cowards. For 12 years, I had been the one holding CorePath together. Not the ones giving TED Talk-style speeches at town halls. Not the culture guys who spent more time making vision boards than actual progress. Me, Mandy Lee, integration lead, compliance liaison, the one who made sure we didn't get shut down every time our executives tried to sprint through walls they didn't understand. And this was how they erased me. The humiliation was so sharp I could taste iron. They hadn't just fired me. They'd staged an execution. My face pinned like a wanted poster. Not employee, not person, just a warning. I walked out of the building without a word, the autumn air hitting me cold and raw. My phone buzzed with 2 unread emails from HR, subject lines dripping with finality. Exit protocol reminder and return of company assets. I didn't open them. Instead, I sat in my car, hands shaking, staring at the steering wheel like it might spin me back in time. 1 hour ago, I'd been reviewing the last set of compliance triggers for the CorePath-Visenda merger, a $500 million deal plastered across every news site. I was the one who held the clearance certificate, the neutral witness authority. My name was on the federal filings, not Tate's, not Mallory's, mine. And now I was banned. I thought of every birthday missed because of late-night server migrations, every holiday dinner interrupted by a frantic call from legal. Every time I sat silently in meetings while men who couldn't even read the integration reports used my work to boost their LinkedIn profiles. For years, I had convinced myself it was worth it. Stability, respect, a career that mattered. But staring at my face taped at that security desk, I realized the truth. I'd been invisible until they needed someone to blame. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me answered. Mandy, a voice said, sharp with panic. It was George, the CFO. His usual drawl was gone. He sounded like a man clinging to a cliff edge. Don't hang up. Listen carefully. The merger, it's gone. Visenda froze everything. They said compliance is void without you. The board is in meltdown. His breathing was ragged. They're driving to your place right now to beg. Don't answer that door. Do you hear me? Don't answer it. I stared at the windshield, the city lights blurring. My humiliation, my anger, my silence. They weren't just emotions anymore. They were leverage. For the first time in years, I felt something settle inside me. Cold. Steady. They thought they could erase me. Instead, they'd erase the only bridge they had left. And they were about to learn what happens when you cut loose the wrong person. When I got home, the silence hit harder than the lobby humiliation. No Slack notifications, no late-night pings from legal, no endless stream of, "Hey, Mandy," Quick question. That never took less than 3 hours to fix. Just quiet. Too quiet. I set the cardboard box from my office on the kitchen table. My life in corporate exile reduced to a mug that said coffee. Because adulting is hard, a half-used notebook, and a handful of USB drives no one at CorePath knew existed. I stared at them, half numb, half furious. It wasn't grief anymore. It was precision. I had always kept a contingency file. Not because I was paranoid, because I paid attention. 12 years in compliance will teach you one thing. Arrogance always eats itself alive. Executives think regulations are speed bumps. They're not. They're landmines. And I'd been the one walking barefoot through the field for over a decade, clearing the path for them. Now they'd fired me, banned me, humiliated me, and in the process, they'd blown off their own legs. I was still turning that thought over in my mind when the knock came. 3 sharp raps on the front door, then again. Harder. I froze. George's voice from an hour earlier echoed in my head. "They're driving to your place right now to beg." Don't answer that door. I crept to the hallway, bare feet on cold wood, and glanced at the doorbell cam on my phone. A black sedan sat crooked in the driveway. 2 men in suits stood on the porch, one holding a manila envelope, the other glued to his phone. Their posture screamed panic. They knocked again. This time the sound carried through the walls. "Ms. Lee, we just want to talk," the taller one called, voice too smooth to hide the edge underneath. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just watched them through the grainy screen. Because here's the thing. When you've been invisible your whole career, silence becomes your sharpest weapon. They expected tears, anger, maybe even begging. But silence? Silence unnerved them. After 5 minutes of pacing, one of them muttered something, checked his phone again, and wedged the envelope into the screen door. Then they left, the sedan reversing too fast, tires crunching against the curb. I waited another 10 minutes before opening the door. The envelope lay flat against the porch, damp from the evening air. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. I already knew what it said. Apologies. Offers. Empty promises wrapped in corporate jargon. They still thought this was about my job, but they didn't understand. I wasn't playing for a seat at their table anymore. I had built the table. I had wired the locks. I had written the clauses they were now tripping over like blindfolded children. I poured myself a glass of water, sat back down at the kitchen table, and finally pulled the notebook from the box. Its cover was battered, corners bent, but inside my handwriting was neat, meticulous. On page 47, highlighted in angry red ink months ago, was Clause 12B. Termination of the named liaison without formal substitution and recertification voids compliance status and suspends acquisition standing plain English. Fire me without replacing me, and the $500 million merger becomes a legal paperweight. I traced the words with my finger, letting the reality sink in. They hadn't just humiliated me. They'd detonated their own future. My phone buzzed again. A text from Kyle, my old assistant. "Everyone's freaking out. Did you hear something? Legal is blaming finance. Finance is blaming HR. What's Clause 12B? I stared at the message, my lips curving into something between a smile and a grimace. For years, I'd carried the weight of their ignorance, their arrogance, their laziness. Tonight, for the first time, it wasn't my burden anymore. I typed a reply slowly, deliberately. Check the protocol. Page 47, then hit send. No explanation, no hand-holding, just the fuse. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair. Outside, the sedan was gone, but I knew it wouldn't be the last visit. Desperation has a way of circling back. But tonight, the house was quiet, and I finally felt something I hadn't in years. Control. They thought they'd banned me from their floor forever. What they didn't realize was that I had already taken the ground out from under them, and the fall had only just begun. By Tuesday morning, the cracks were showing. I didn't have to guess. I could hear it through the grapevine. My phone buzzed nonstop, not with calls I intended to answer, but with texts, screenshots, whispers forwarded from people still inside CorePath. The first was from Kyle. Emergency all hands. CFO looks like he hasn't slept. Tate keeps saying it's just a technical glitch. But legal is yelling it's a compliance void. People are whispering about you. I almost laughed. For 12 years, I'd been invisible. Mandy in integration. The one who kept the plumbing from exploding while the executives posed for LinkedIn photos. Now suddenly my name was on everyone's lips. Not out of respect, but fear. The irony was almost poetic. By mid-morning, the news started leaking beyond the walls. A blind item on a finance blog. Unnamed Midwest tech firm faces compliance freeze in $500 million merger. Deal in limbo. They didn't need to name CorePath. Anyone in the industry could connect the dots. The fallout moved fast. At 10:15, Kyle messaged again. Legal just stormed into the boardroom. Someone mentioned Clause 12B out loud. CFO went pale. People are saying you were never replaced. Macrovia froze signatures, Clause 12B, the words I had circled months ago. The landmine I'd left in plain sight, ignored until it blew off their collective legs. Inside the glass tower, panic spread like fire in dry brush. HR blamed legal. Legal blamed finance. Finance blamed the COO. And all of them quietly blamed me. The woman they had erased with a Sharpie scrawl at the security desk. Meanwhile, I sat at my kitchen table in sweatpants, pouring almond milk into my cereal, watching it unfold in real time. At 11:04, George, the CFO, finally called again. I didn't pick up, but his voicemail landed in my inbox seconds later. His voice was high, desperate. Mandy, please, this isn't what it looks like. We just need a quick conversation, off the record. We can fix this. You know how much is riding on this merger. Just call me back. Please, I deleted it without listening twice. Because here's the thing. This wasn't a hiccup. It wasn't a bug. It wasn't even revenge. It was mechanics. You remove the keystone, the arch collapses. Basic physics. And I wasn't about to step back in and hold up their cathedral of arrogance. Not for free. Not ever again. By noon, the panic had legs. Kyle messaged again, faster this time, his typing full of nervous energy. They're saying Macrovia won't accept interim replacements. Everyone's screaming about your name still being on federal filings. Someone dug up your last clearance letter. It's everywhere now. HR says it's a temporary delay, but nobody believes them. Tate looks like he's going to faint. I closed my eyes for a moment, picturing it. The executives who had dismissed me as legacy support now pacing boardroom carpets, sweating through their suits, desperately Googling the very protocols I'd written. And still, they hadn't understood the simplest truth. You don't erase the foundation and expect the house to stand. That afternoon, another voicemail landed, this time from an unknown number. Ms. Lee, this is Andrew Chen from Macrovia Compliance. We've reviewed the documents and noticed your name listed as liaison on all filings. Can you confirm whether you're still authorized under CorePath employment? It's urgent we clarify this. His tone was professional, clipped. But underneath, I heard the tremor of a man who knew $500 million hung on my next sentence. I didn't call back. Not yet. Instead, I walked to the hallway closet and pulled out the fireproof box I'd hidden behind a stack of winter coats. Inside were labeled folders. Legal, protocols, contingency. My handwriting, neat and deliberate, stared back at me. I flipped to the tab I knew by heart. Clause 12B, highlighted again. My signature at the bottom of every page, stamped with dates no one could erase. It wasn't paranoia. It was foresight. I had built the system to protect the company, but I had also built it to protect myself. Because after years of watching arrogance eat through compliance like acid, I knew the day would come when they'd decide I was optional. And when that day came, I'd be ready. By evening, the headlines grew bolder. CorePath Vicenda deal stalled amid compliance dispute. The words hit the finance feeds like a dropped grenade. Stockholders started asking questions. Investors whispered about exit strategies. And inside the tower, I knew the boardroom tremors had become earthquakes. At 7:45, Kyle sent one last text before going silent. People are saying this is all because of you. Some are scared, some are impressed. HR just called you the missing piece. I don't know what to believe, but whatever you did, it's working. I stared at the message for a long time before setting my phone down. Whatever I did, I hadn't done anything. Not yet. All I had done was step back and let the structure collapse under its own weight. And tomorrow, when they realized the bridge was gone for good, the real storm would begin. By Wednesday morning, the silence shattered. It started with an email forwarded by Daniel, my lawyer. Subject line: urgent proposal, immediate engagement. The sender was HR, but the language had Tate's fingerprints all over it. Bloated buzzwords wrapped around a single plea. Come back. They offered double my salary, a new title, enhanced strategic authority, and a return package that read more like a ransom note than a contract. Daniel called me, voice calm as always. Do you want me to ignore it or respond? I thought about it for a long moment. Then I said, respond. But not as me. By noon, he had drafted a reply. Ms. Lee appreciates your revised offer. However, she no longer holds employee status at CorePath Systems. Should your organization wish to re-engage her expertise, Quiet Seal LLC is available for limited licensing of relevant services. Market rates apply. Retainer required. Engagement subject to availability. Surgical. Precise. No emotion. When Daniel read it aloud, I felt something tighten in my chest, then release. For the first time in my career, I wasn't begging for a seat at their table. I was setting the price of admission. And I wasn't cheap. By 3 p.m., my phone lit up with texts from Kyle. The offer leaked. Everyone saw the reply. People are whispering like you're some kind of legend. HR is in meltdown. Someone pasted the message into a staff thread and it's everywhere. I could almost see it. Employees huddled around glowing monitors, reading the response in hushed tones. The same people who never noticed me before suddenly speaking my name like it carried weight. Not Mandy from Integration. Not the invisible cog. But Mandy Lee, the woman who stopped a $500 million deal with a single missing signature. I closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair, and let the thought settle. This wasn't revenge. This was clarity. The knock at my door came just as the sun dipped low behind the trees. Not sharp this time, but hesitant. When I checked the camera, a woman in a slate gray blazer stood on the porch, clutching a leather folio like a life raft. She looked tired, desperate. I didn't open the door. She knocked again, softer. Mandy? It's Allison, from legal. Please, just 5 minutes. We need to talk. I stayed still, watched her shift her weight, glance at her phone, mutter something under her breath. Finally, she slid a white envelope under the door and left, shoulders hunched like she was walking through rain. I picked it up 10 minutes later. Inside was a formal letter of apology, stamped with CorePath's seal. Words like oversight, miscommunication, and unintended outcome filled the page. At the bottom, a handwritten note. Please, Mandy, don't let this end everything. I folded the letter neatly, slid it back into the envelope, and set it on the counter. They still thought this was about feelings, about loyalty, about me wanting back into the very place that had erased me. But the truth was simpler. I didn't want back in. I wanted out. And now, for the first time, I had leverage strong enough to make that permanent. That evening, I opened my laptop and filed paperwork for Quiet Seal LLC. 11 minutes later, I had a registered entity, a bank account pending, and a new email domain. Just like that, I wasn't an employee anymore. I was an entity, a vendor, a firewall with terms they couldn't dictate. At 9:30, Kyle texted again. You really did it. People are saying you turned the bridge into a toll road. Tate is furious. He keeps repeating that he'll fix it internally, but nobody believes him. Legal says Macrovia won't budge. I smiled at the phrasing. A toll road. Not burned, not destroyed. Just mine now. At 10:12, George left another voicemail, his voice breaking this time. Mandy, please. I'll authorize anything. Just tell us what you want. We're dead without you. Don't do this to us, I didn't delete it. Not yet. I listened twice, then set the phone down and made myself a grilled cheese sandwich. Because I had already decided. This wasn't something I was doing to them. This was something they had done to themselves. I had simply stopped holding the roof up. By Thursday morning, the headlines were impossible to ignore. CorePath-Visenda merger officially terminated amid compliance void. $500 million deal collapses, stock in freefall. CorePath faces investor revolt after legal oversight. I sat at my kitchen table in sweatpants, sipping warm coffee, watching the fallout unfold in real time. 3 screens lit up in front of me, none connected to Slack, none tethered to the company that had once dictated every waking hour of my life. At 9:04 a.m., my phone buzzed with another voicemail from George, the CFO. His voice was ragged, like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. Mandy, this is catastrophic. The board is furious. Investors are pulling out. Visenda won't even return our calls. Please help us fix this. We'll meet any terms you ask. I let it roll into silence. Because what he didn't understand was this. I wasn't holding them hostage. I hadn't sabotaged anything. I'd simply stopped carrying the weight of their arrogance. And without me, their tower had crumbled. By midday, a screenshot leaked onto LinkedIn. It showed a photo, my photo, taped to the CorePath security desk with the words, "Banned from this floor forever." Someone had added a caption. How you treat your veterans tells the rest of us everything we need to know. It spread like wildfire. Former employees chimed in. Clients shared it quietly. Even someone from Visenda's leadership liked the post. The symbolism was too sharp to miss. The woman erased was the same woman who held the entire deal together. Inside CorePath, chaos metastasized. One of Kyle's texts painted the scene. Emergency board session. No bagels, no small talk, just screaming. Tate tried to spin it, said they could rebuild trust. Someone in legal laughed out loud. The lead investor asked, who authorized termination without transition? Everyone stared at their shoes. By evening, Daniel forwarded me one last offer. Triple salary, executive title. An apology letter drafted by PR. It was a desperate Hail Mary, the kind of document that smelled of cold sweat. I didn't even bother to read it all the way through. I just told Daniel to reply with the same message as before. Quiet Seal LLC is available for licensing. Retainer required. Market rates apply. No drama, no emotion, just terms. At 7:13 a.m. Friday, the final blow landed. Visenda released a statement. Due to unresolvable compliance discrepancies and personnel irregularities, Visenda Group has terminated acquisition proceedings with CorePath Systems. We wish all parties well. 4 sentences. Cold. Surgical. By 9 a.m., CorePath stock was in freefall. Investors fled. The CFO resigned mid-call, citing family reasons. HR bled staff in waves. And Tate, the man who had strutted into all hands with startup cult energy, reportedly left the building through a side exit, face pale, suit wrinkled, swagger gone. And me? I didn't go back. Not even when another courier left a velvet box on my porch that afternoon. Inside was a simple note, handwritten on Visenda stationery. Next time, they'll know who built the bridge. RM, CEO, Visenda Group. No pitch, no offer, just recognition. The kind that doesn't come with confetti, but lands like a gavel. I placed it on my bookshelf between the merger binders and Quiet Seal's incorporation papers. Because by then, Quiet Seal LLC wasn't just an idea. It was alive. My inbox pinged with contracts. 2 new clients. One of them was CorePath itself. They didn't want to, but they had no choice. They needed the very infrastructure they had once dismissed as legacy. And now, I controlled the keys. I charged them 4 times the original rate. They didn't complain. They knew better. That evening, as the sun spilled through the blinds, I sat at my new desk, the air smelling of fresh pine instead of burnt coffee. My fingers wrapped around a warm cup, the velvet box catching the light on the shelf. The phone buzzed again. A new email. Subject: respectfully requesting your terms. I smiled, let the coffee sit on my tongue for a moment, then swallowed. They thought they had banned me, erased me, made me a ghost. But in the end, I wasn't chasing anymore. I was the terms.